Happy Monday, everybody. We are 1 week away from the midterm. So right now, it's going to be pretty much practice. We are right here, week 7. We're going to do some a practice midterm for this whole week. Kind of get used to the workflow, right? How to write a function, test it, and submit. Right, so the midterm is on Monday. I'm going to make an announcement on Canvas later. But yeah, this midterm is asynchronous, meaning you don't have to be in person nor the Zoom chat. But if you do show up in person or the Zoom chat, then you can ask any clarification questions, in case some questions might be ambiguous. But hopefully they're not. Next week, there's going to be a topic called character encoding. This one is going to be optional, so uh, don't worry too much about character encoding. If anything, I'm going to replace this lesson with something else, pretty much a high-level overview on what Python coding can look like. Because so far we've been doing Python coding in a notebook, right? We've just been writing small blocks of code, pressing play, right? But in the industry, you might find yourself writing whole source code and running it. So yeah, I'm going to replace this character encoding lesson with a high-level overview. All right, let's jump into the practice midterm. Okay, so it's in the quizzes, and you can pretty much download it right here. So practice midterm. There are two pieces to it. There is the Canvas quiz associated with it, and also a notebook. Right, so the notebook's right here. You can download it and upload it to your server. Pretty much all this notebook is, it's like a playground, right? You can write your functions there and test it. And then the second part is in the Canvas quiz, right here. So here, let's download it first. So I'm gonna download this exam. Okay, there we go. And then upload it. I'm gonna make a new folder just to be a little more organized. Let me make a folder called midterm exam. I'll call it practice, actually. Practice midterm exam. And then just go ahead and upload it. Oh, it looks like there's a 1 here. Oh, that's because I downloaded it already. So let me just remove this 1. Then, okay, here, hold up. Let me just clean something up real quick. Okay, cool. So I have the exam here, and when I load it up, um, there's our notebook. Now, once again, this notebook, we can treat it like a playground, right, where we're gonna write our solution in this one cell, right, and then test it below. Right, so the questions aren't here. Right? The questions are in the Canvas quiz. So let's go to the Canvas quiz. Folks can read these directions later. It's pretty much saying that each question, each of the functions should have at minimum a function with a docstring. Yeah, so go ahead and take a look at these instructions later. And there's a code of conduct. Basically, it's a pretty much open note. The only restriction is don't copy and paste from AI. So here, let's take a look at the quiz. Okay. All right, so there's the quiz, and there are about 6 practice questions. Right, each of these questions are asking us to write a function. Right, so let's just take a high-level overview. Right, this is question 1, write a function. Right, and then question 2, write another one. And then question 3, write another one. Right, and then 4, same thing. And then 5, and 6, the last one. Right, and then finally, the very last question will be an upload. Right, and the last one, it says, please upload the notebook into here. Right, so pretty much what's happening is there's like a kind of a duplicate. Right, we're gonna implement our solution in the notebook, right? And also as a backup, just copy the solution into these text boxes, right? So it's a little redundant, but it'll be a little safer, right? So then the last question will be finally upload the notebook. So make sure you can save some time for the end of the exam to upload it. And this is probably the most important question. Upload the notebook. I think it'll make sure you save like maybe 5 minutes to download it from the server and then upload it. Okay, so let's kind of go over this. Right, so I'm going to kind of switch back and forth between these tabs. Hopefully it's not too hard to follow along. Okay, so I'm going to switch back and forth. So back to the server, the notebook. This is where we will implement our solution and test it. Right, so implement it here. So I'm just going to put my name here, Andrew Tack. Right, so we're going to implement all of the functions in this cell, right? But and test it down here. Right? But just to encourage a good programming practice, right? Don't type out all of the functions and then test all of them, right? You want to do it one by one, right? So implement question one as a function and then test it, right? And then once you're sure it's working, then you can paste it into this box right here. All right, so here let's do an example. All right, question one. Write a function called circumference, right? That takes one argument, radius. And the goal of this function is to calculate the circumference. Right? So calculate and return it. So we can see the inputs and output down here. Right? The input is just one parameter, right? Just a single number. And then it's going to return a float that represents the circumference. So if this is open notes, meaning that you can look up formulas, right? Like if you look up circumference formula, then it should show up somewhere. Circumference formula. Let's see. I'm just gonna click on the pictures, images. Let's see, circumference of a circle, right here. It's equal to 2 pi r, right? Meaning 2 times pi times radius, right? Or mathematically equivalent, the diameter times pi. Same thing. So let's implement that. So once again, I'm going to switch back and forth. Hopefully it's not too hard to keep along. But yeah, feel free to pause the video and try it out. If you're watching this recording, please pause it and try it over and over again. Right? Don't just look at the solution and copy it down, because you might not get too much from it. So let's try it out. All right, write a function called circumference. Okay, so right away, we should be able to define a function called circumference. There you go. Okay, and you could look back at the Canvas quiz. It did say that it needs to take one parameter, radius. Okay, there we go. So we just defined it. For minimal partial credit, we need a docstring, which is a comment that describes the purpose of the function and its inputs and outputs. So the purpose here is to calculate the area circumference, of a circle. Right? That's the purpose. And then the inputs, right? There's only one of it. It's the radius. Right? This is a float that represents the radius. Yeah. Oh, okay. Here, I'll be right there. Let me see what's going on with that. Okay. Anyways, we're back at this doc string. So we got this purpose, the inputs, and finally the output. So the output is that it returns the circumference. Okay. So that's for minimal credit. Right. The purpose of this function is to calculate and return it. Right. So there's many ways we can do this. So we could use the formula. Right. The formula was um, 2 pi times radius. Right. So let's use that one. 2 times pi times radius. Right. So you could do this however you want. I'm gonna make a variable and then return it. Right. So I'm just gonna make a variable called result is equal to that formula we just saw. Right. So 2 times pi times radius. Right, so we could start off by doing 3.14, right, 159. I'm not sure. Right, so pi does have a lot of digits. I'm going to use this for now and kind of see what's happening. Okay, so 2 times pi times radius. Right, there's a formula. And this function should return the circumference. Right? It needs to return it so the caller can have access to that number. Right, so we calculate and then output. Right, so here's our output. Return the result. All right, so there we go. We wrote the function. We should probably test it to see if it's working. All right, like I'm just gonna press play here, which will invoke, it'll load the function in. Okay, then we can test it. Right, so down here, this cell is really just made so you can playground it. Right, you can play around with the function you just wrote. So we could test it. Right, so I'm gonna invoke the circumference function. And it does take a number, like a radius. Right? So whatever number I put in here will be propagated back up into here. So I'm just going to test it with like a circumference with a radius of 5. Right? This should evaluate to some number. So let's test it. Okay, so it evaluates to 31.4159, which you can verify this on calculator. Right? Pretty much, this is 10 times pi. Right? You can test it with more, like maybe the number 4.2. Right, and we run it, and it should give us a different number. Are people familiar with this? Okay. So we're just testing it, right? We're just invoking it manually. Typically, I would probably print it, so it will actually not show the value. Yeah, this will actually explicitly print out the value instead of relying on Jupyter Notebook displaying the last run statement. So I would print it. Oh, hold up. This chair is too squeaky. Okay. So we're testing it manually, right? The point of this cell is to test our functions manually. Okay. So there is also an auto grading checker down here, right? The auto grading checker, what it does is it looks at this cell and it tests questions that were asked, right? For example, circumference was a question that was asked. So the auto grading checker will check it. So I'm going to run this. Right? I need to save it. So save the notebook and then run it. And okay, it gave us an error. So this error is actually common. We need to run, I think, the first cell. So I forgot to run the very first cell at the top. Pretty much this is loading in a checker program. So let's run this very first cell. Okay, rerun this, rerun our manual cell. Okay, and finally the auto grading thing. Okay, so it's running, and we see that the output here, right? It's saying circumference, right? So it's giving us feedback on this function, right? The feedback won't help out too much, but it'll at least help minimally with what's going on. So we did pass the doc string, right? This is for minimal credit, but we failed the circumference, right? We failed the return value, right? So for the reason right here, right, it's a little hard to see, but It says, oh, reason, this number doesn't equal this number, right? So can anyone interpret what's going on? Right, this number doesn't equal this number. Yeah, it's a little weird, right? Yeah, yeah. So it's not as precise. So our answer is one of these, but it doesn't match the expected answer. Right? But basically, it's not precise enough. Our pi here is only 5 digits, so we need the pi to be more precise, right? We need to add more digits here. Right, so you can, once again, this is an open note exam, so you can look up pi. Right? Well, I think one thing you can do is use a constant that comes from a library. Right? So there is a library called math. Right? So at the top, I'm just going to import math. This will give us access to a constant, right, called math.pi. So this is pretty much a constant that is more precise, right? It's got more decimal places after it. Okay, let's test it. So I will load the function in. Okay, there it is, loaded. And then let's test manually, right? This should be more precise now. So I'm just going to press play, and there it is. See, it's much more precise, right? Meaning that the checker should be good now because we're using a better pi. So I just ran it, and there we go. See, the auto grading thing is passing all the stuff, right? Test the docstring, the result, and the syntax. So this is kind of the workflow of the exam, right? Write a function, right? Test it, and then maybe ask for feedback, and then go ahead and upload it, right? So here's the redundancy of the notebook. Redundancy is we have the solution in the notebook and also in the Canvas. So you want to go ahead and copy this, right? Copy this into the Canvas quiz. So go into the Canvas quiz. Here it is. You can paste it into this text box. Right? Before pasting, I recommend formatting it so the font is more code-like. So click on this paragraph button and click on pre-format. Right? This will allow us to have a neater font. Oh, actually, I did it out of order. So paste it and then highlight it and then convert it to pre-formatted. Right? This will make the font look fixed, a fixed width font. All right, people cool with that so far? Okay, so that was question one. Okay, any questions so far about question one? Yeah, yeah. This one right here? Got you. All right, give a couple more minutes just for folks to copy this down. Let me shut that door real quick. Oh, okay. I scoured everything. What? Yeah. I could have sworn because that was the thing. Because if one mess up, you're gonna see like, oh my, you're gonna be messed up one thing, and then you're just gonna start over to make sure everything's running properly. Yep. Okay, let's move on to the next question. So we got question one, tested it, verified it. All right, number two, right? It's another function. this one is pretty much a fancy wrapper for a list insert function. Right, so you might have to revisit the list lesson that we did, I think, on the second week. Right, but pretty much this is really wrapping an insert function. So if we look at our previous lesson, let's see, lessons right here, lists. There was a time when we used the insert function. I think it was right here. Right, so yeah, make sure you review this and know how to use it. So, okay, so here, let me. Okay, so the quiz question: write a function called add to list, right, and it's going to take three arguments. Right, the first one is a list called L. The second one is some element that we're inserting, right, and then the third one is the place. Right, the place is a number that represents where to insert it. And all this function does is, yeah, inserts that item into the list at that certain place. Right, so here, let's go ahead and program it. Right, so our solutions will go into here, right? All of the functions into this one cell. So the function was called add to list. There we go. Let me zoom in a bit. It takes 3 arguments. Right, you can look at the Canvas quiz again, so just switch the tabs. But the first argument was L, right, which is the list that we're going to be adding to. And then the second one is an element that we're adding to that list. All right, let's see what they want it to be called. Item. Okay, so item. And then the third one is place. Right, this argument represents the position to insert the item. All right, and once again, for minimal credit, a doc string. Right, the purpose is to insert an item into a specified position in a list. Okay, and there are 3 arguments. L, the list we're using to insert, right? And then item, this is the element to insert. And then place, this is the position to place the item. Okay, and once again, this is really just a wrapper for the list insert function. So yeah, once again, you might want to revisit the lists. Okay, so if you revisit the lists, then we'll see that the insert, pretty much you say list dot insert, and then the place, and then the element. Right? Meaning that all we really have to do is invoke that function in here. We just have to say the list, which is L, and then we're going to insert, right? Insert something. Right? Once again, the insert function, the first argument is the position, right? And then the second one is the element to place in it. Okay. This function doesn't require any return values. You can see the instructions for that. There's really no return value for this, right? All it does is modifies the L list. Okay, let's make this more concrete. So we need to test it, right? So folks can kind of see what it's doing. So I just loaded it in. Right, let's test it. So I'm gonna comment this one out because we already verified the circumference. So just to kind of visualize the point of this, right? Say we have a list. I'm just gonna call it test list, right? Equal to hello is equal to a bunch of strings. Right? And but basically, the goal of the function is to take this list and insert something in it. Right? So if I were to call the function add to list, right, and then this takes three arguments, right? It takes a list, right? So I'm just going to pass it in the test list, and then the next two arguments are the item and then the position to place it. Right? So if I were to place some other string, like I'm just going to say Bob, right? And then next, the specify the position, a number. Right? So if I were to place it in the 1th position, right, this should place it in between, right, because we start counting from 0 and then 1. Right? So 1 should put it in this position and then push world to the next one. Okay, so we're testing it, and then I'm just going to print out the resulting test list. So print test list, right, just so we can verify the end result. Okay, so let's test it. So play, and folks see what happened here. Right, so we initialize a list to these two elements, and then we pass that list into a function that we just wrote. And then specify two more arguments, right, Bob and then 1. Right, so once again, these arguments, they get propagated into this function. Right, this function takes them and then really, once again, wraps the insert function. So it's inserting Bob into the L list. Right, so hopefully that makes sense what's happening here. Oh, this is not the number 1. This is L, yeah. Yeah, this can actually be named anything. So I named it L because that's what the question asked for. All right, so we invoked it manually. Now it's probably time to ask the autograder for feedback. So I'm gonna go down here, save the notebook, and rerun this checker. So press play. There it is, it's running. And we see a new output, right? New feedback saying add to list. And yeah, we passed all the tests. So cool, it's looking good. Meaning that we can probably paste this solution over to the Canvas quiz. Right, so I'm just going to copy this function and then paste it over to the midterm. Right, so paste, there we go. And once again, it might be good to format this. So it's a fixed width font. I'm going to format that. There we go. All right, it's a little redundant, but it's for safety. Okay. Yeah, George.
So just still just to make sure is it like when placing the code it has to do we put everything in or are we just is it alright we could just where the graded code it's like it's all pass we just put just copy and paste the code from the checker and place it into the box or
Oh no, you're pasting over the function implementation.
oh okay.
So
Should I take a look at the one on the first one just to make sure because I feel like I saw like add to if you go to the quiz
yeah, the quiz.
oh, okay, all right, good. Okay, I have that.
Okay, yeah. These quiz boxes are just to store your function implementation. Just one function in each of them. Yeah, I can take a look. Yeah, I'll be right back, Zoom folks. Let's see.
Oh, so it has to be lined up here. Yeah. Oh, it needs to be exact.
All right. Hopefully, folks are cool with this. We just did the first two questions on the midterm. And once again, the pipeline is implement in this cell, right, and then test manually so you can verify the answers. Right? And then finally, you can ask for feedback, right, which might help. The checker is fairly terse, meaning that it's not smart enough to tell you what's really happening wrong. Right? So it's kind of vague. Right? That's why I encourage folks to test manually. All right, and then once you implement it and you think it works, then paste it over to this canvas. Okay, let's move on. So next question is number 3. I'm going to skip over this and let folks try it out themselves. So this would be a good to practice at home. I'm just going to skip over it though. Right, really, it's asking us to write a function that takes a list and returns the sum of that first 5 elements. Right, so go ahead and see if you can try that out at home. Um, if folks are wondering what the output should be, like let's say I invoke it manually, right? Like here, I'm just gonna comment this out because we're done with this one. But basically, the question is called list first 5, right? This means that if we were to invoke this function, right, with some list, right? Once again, this does take an argument list, right, of numbers. Right? So if I had a test list of numbers, right, like let's just say test list is equal to some numbers, right? 1, 3, and then 9, 2, and 5, right? It doesn't matter.
This was the example from the classroom, right? IS or library, where we had it in the classroom, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this list stuff is in lesson 6. So yeah, you can take a look at those. So yeah, let's say we have this test list. If we were to pass it into this function, right, test list, it should return some value. Right? You can look at this right here. It says returns a sum of the first 5 numbers. Right? So the goal of this function is it'll return some result, right? So if I store the result into this variable and print it out, right, it should print it. Right? So it's going to give me an error message right here because we never implemented that function. But I'm going to let folks try it out at home. Right? Pretty much, it should take in the test list and then index all of these. Right? Index the 0th element, the 1th element, 2, 3, and 4. Right? Add them all up, and then it should return the sum of it. Right? 1 plus 3 plus 9 plus 2 plus 5. Okay. So yeah, go ahead and try that out. I'm going to comment this out right here. Okay. Okay, let's go down to the next one though. Let's see. Okay, question 4. Let's see. Write a function called name tag that takes 2 string arguments. And all this function should do is print those arguments back out. And so this is like a fancy print statement. It's a function that wraps the print function. Okay, let's go ahead and implement it. So it needs to be called name tag. I'm gonna go up here. Let's make a new function called name tag. And once again, it takes 2 arguments, 2 string arguments called first and last. Okay, so let's go call it first and then last. Okay. And once again, for minimal credit, we need a doc string. Okay, so all this does is it, let me look at the midterm, prints a greeting. Yeah, that's pretty much what it does. So it prints a greeting, right? The arguments, there's two of them, two inputs. First, a string for the first name, and then last string for the last name. This question didn't ask for any return values, right? It doesn't need any output. Um, well, technically, it does have a print output, but it's not a return output. Right? So all this function does is prints, hello, my name is, and then the value of those arguments, right, in reverse order. So last and then first. So let's implement that. So once again, this is just a fancy wrapper for a print statement. Right? It's just going to be a print and then a hello. Oh, let's see what it wanted. My name is last, comma first. Hello, my name is last, comma first. I'll probably use an F string for this. This way we can interpolate the variables, right? Last and comma first. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's see. How's it going, Daniel? Oh, yo. Yeah, so I just use an F string. This way we can interpolate these into this string right here. Okay, let's go ahead and test it. So I'm gonna load the function in and test it. Right, once again, this takes two arguments, so string arguments. Right, so let's test it down here. Name tag, and it takes two arguments. I'm just gonna hard code two strings here. Let's just say Andrew and then tac. These arguments will get propagated up into this function, and we should print out the value as is. So let's run this cell now. So press play, and there we go. Yeah, hello, my name is tac, and then Andrew. Cool, so we invoked it manually. It looks like it's working. So we can ask for feedback. So I'm gonna ask the auto grading thing for feedback. So press play. Okay, there we go. So name tag, it looks like we passed all the tests.
Wait, about the midterm when I hit it, will there be like a problem when I hit resume quiz? Because I hit the start quiz.
Oh yeah, good question. So yeah, someone asked earlier if maybe you lose internet connection and come back into here. Yeah, you should be able to resume quiz and it should still be fine.
Oh, okay. I accidentally hit the start quiz and then it started the countdown.
Oh yeah. When you start quiz, there's a countdown. It's a 2-hour timer. Okay. So we verified our function manually and asked for feedback, and the feedback looks good, meaning we're probably ready to copy it over to the Canvas text box. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the function implementation right here. So copy and then paste it into question number 4. Now paste it, and once again, it might be good to format it. So I'm going to highlight everything, format. Here we go. Okay. People cool with this so far, the workflow. Oh yeah. These are technically hard-coded strings, but any string should work. So if you change these arguments, it should update the print statement. Right. The point is the function should not be hard-coded. Right. So a common pitfall that I see, some people will hard code the names into the function, Like some people will go here and they'll say, oh, first is equal to Andrew, and then they'll hard code last is equal to attack, right? You don't want to do this because then the function will only work with these names, right? So if I were to load this function in, so load this in, and if I said like Bob Tack, right? It's always going to give me Andrew Tack, right? So change it, Bob something. I see it didn't say hello, my name is something Bob, right? Even though it should have. So the pitfall here is hard coding. Right? You don't want to hard code the function arguments. Right? Otherwise, the function will override them. So I'm delete them, delete these right here, meaning our function is more general. Okay, there we go. So, oops. Oh, you got the invalid syntax? Yeah, here, let me take a look. Yeah, here, let me see. Be right back, Zoom folks. Oh, yeah, invalid syntax. So, oh, it's a comma. Comma last. Oh, yeah. Oh, we got to run that function. That makes sense. Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. Um, oh, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, where do you put it? You only put the tool in your final. Okay, let's get back into it. So we just finished a few questions. I did skip over number 3, so folks can try it out at home. Let's see what else there is. Okay, there's a couple more. Let's see. I think I'm gonna try these. I think I'm gonna go over these. I'll do one more, and then I'll let folks try out the rest at home. All right, so you'll just have to do 2 more. Okay, this next one is a little trickier. It's asking us to write a function that returns an HTML string. So it's let's talk about this coding cell in a bit. Actually, let's talk about it now. So this might look a little weird, but basically this code cell it's saying that if we were to invoke the function, then it should return this string. Now, this is from the Python terminal. So basically, if we press play on this one statement, right, it should return this string. Right, so this is a little hard to read right now, but basically it's just taking a dictionary, right? So this function takes one dictionary as an argument, right? And then it uses the information in that dictionary to return us some string. Okay, so here let's implement it, right? And folks should be able to see what's going on. So it needs to be called create HTML tag. So let's get that. Okay, so define a function called create HTML tag. Okay, it takes one argument. It's an argument that represents the dictionary data. So you can look here. Right? So it's called a tag info, which is a dictionary that contains the data. Okay, so let's get that. So it's called tag info. Okay, so here let's get a doc string here so folks understand the purpose of this function. Right, the purpose is to generate an HTML string, right, from the data in tag info. My tag info is a dictionary, so I'm going to list that here as an argument. Right? There's only one argument, is tag info, right, which is a dictionary with two key value pairs. Right? So we could look at the here the quiz. So tag info dictionary is expected to have two key value pairs, right? A tag name and a tag data. Right? But basically, these keys will give us the values to format the HTML string. Okay, so just to kind of make that a little, so here, let me get the returns here. I want to make it more concrete in a bit because this might seem like a confusing question. Okay, so this will return an HTML formatted string. Okay, before I even code the function, I kind of want to invoke it hypothetically, right? So folks can see what's supposed to happen. Okay, so let's pretend to invoke it even though it's not implemented yet. So I'm going to comment this name tag out because we're already done with it. But basically, let's say we have some data, right? Like I'm just going to make a test dictionary equal to some key value pairs, right? So the dictionary is expected to have a key called a tag name, and then tag data, right? So let's get those in. Tag name, and then a tag data. So these are keys, meaning that there is a value associated with it. So if let's say our tag name had like a B, right? If you might remember in HTML, B is bold. And so if we have the tag name, the value be a B, and the second one be like Andrew, right? It doesn't matter what's here. Oh, and then the comma. Don't forget the comma after every key value pair. Right, so this is a test dictionary with data, right? The goal is the function should take this data and generate an HTML string, right? Meaning that if we were to invoke that function, the function is called create HTML tag. Right? If we were to invoke create HTML tag and pass it the test dictionary, right? The return value from here should be a string that represents Andrew with the B's on the side. And we can see that in the quiz here. Right? Basically, if we were to invoke the function with that dictionary, right? This is the same dictionary that I pretty much coded, but just on multiple lines. This is pretty much the return value should be the string. Right? The string is the tag data in between these bold tag names. And that's a goal here. So hopefully people kind of see what's supposed to happen, right? This test dictionary gets propagated up into here, right? And we need to access the key value pairs. Right? We need to return a string. Right? So let's just say we have a string called result, right, equal to something, and then return it in the end. So once again, this is a string that represents what we need. Right? So I'm just going to put it here. Maybe I'll make it an f string because we want to interpolate certain values into here. Right? Like for example, we do need to interpolate the tag name. Right? So this dictionary is expected to have two key value pairs, right? One with tag name and one with tag data. So let me just put this in here real quick with the keys. A dictionary with the keys tag name, tag data. Right. Okay. So this f string should interpolate the value from these keys. Right? We need the tag data, which is the plain text that we're going to represent. Right? So we could put tag data here. Right? But then on the sides, we need to create the tags, the tag names. Oh, I think I have this wrong. My bad. I have this wrong. So uh, we need to interpolate the value in the dictionary. So it's actually going to be the dictionary name, right? But then we're grabbing the value from tag data. Okay. So all this HTML string represents is the data, right? So if I were to return this result, right? It's not done yet, by the way. Right? We're going to build up to it. So if I were to return this result, so let me just press play on here. But basically, it's only using this key value pair, right? So if I were to run it and then display this HTML, right? So this does return something. So I can just store it in an HTML, in a string called my HTML. Right? So let's just visualize what it looks like. Okay, so I just ran it, and it took in this test dictionary and then gave us this plain Andrew, right? We're building up to it. We're not done with this. So this is an HTML string, but we need it to have the tags on both sides. We need to have B. I see. So once again, we need to go up here. Whoops. Yeah. So up here, surround this plain text with the tag name. So you might remember in HTML that there's an opening tag. Right? So an opening tag and then a closing one. Right? And you don't want to hard code the B in here because we want it to grab the value from this tag name. Right? So we can interpolate this. So the opening tag will be tag name. In the closing one, right, forward slash, same thing, tag name. Oh, I also made another typo here. So it's not actually tag name. This is the key. So I meant to say dictionary, right? The dictionary and then the value from the key. Right, same with here. Tag info, and then a tag name. So this might be a little hard to read, so I'm just going to make this into a multi-line f string. Right, but basically, it's going to be easier to read. So make this a multi-line f string. Basically, we got a tag right here, and then the text in between, and then the closing tag right here. This is, in my opinion, a little easier to read. Okay, so yeah, we got the opening tags, which grabs that B, and then the plain text, and then returning the result at the end. So let's play it. Press play. Okay, now check this out. So we're going to invoke the function manually. So let's try it out. So press play, and you see how it's printing out like this. Yeah, this is pretty much what we want. Right? So even though the uh, it wanted it on the same line, right? It's the same thing because in HTML the new lines don't really matter too much. So this is the same thing. Right? So if I were to change this dictionary, right, like make this an I, right? So I made this an I. I'm just gonna say Bob here. Right? But basically, this data just got changed, meaning that the function will take that new data and update it right here. Right? So there's our new HTML string. So that's pretty much what we need from this function. Right? If you want to do further testing, you can pretty much display it. Like if we were to wrap this string in an HTML object, right? So my HTML, and then display it. This is from the HTML lesson. Right? It should give us what we want. Right there it is. See Bob in italics, right? And we can keep changing it. Like if I made this a U, right? The dictionary got changed, and now it's an underlined Bob, and then change it to a B. It's now a bold one. And so once again, the point of this function is just to create a string, right? An HTML string. Yeah. Going back up to solution. So I do want to reiterate that we don't want to hard code things inside of the function. Right? So this is technically hard coding outside of it. But basically a pitfall here. Some people might hard code a B here. Right? So some people might do this. They're going to put B and then another B right here. Right? We don't want to do that because then the function will only work with bold. Right? So if we were to pass a dictionary with different data, right, it's going to be forced to always print bold. So I hope that makes sense why not to hard code these, right? We want to pull the data from the dictionary. So yeah, this is a little hard to read, but if you did the weather assignments, then this should make more sense. So there we go. So run, and then okay. So sorry, Terrace. Is this perfect? Yeah. All right. I'm gonna leave this up here for another minute. Yeah. All right. Let's move on. So we invoked it manually, right? And you can keep testing it, right? Change these over and over again just to make sure it works. Like make Andrew, and this should update it. There we go, right? And keep testing. And there it is, underlined. Okay, I keep repeating this, but yeah, this test dictionary is not hard coded inside of the function. Right? So some people might go like this. Right? They'll probably go up here, and then they'll hard code a dictionary here, and then call it tag info. Right? You don't want to do this. This is a very common pitfall I see, because then the function only works with this hard coded string. Okay, cool. Let's ask for feedback. Yeah, George. Oh yeah, go up one more time here.
Yeah, no, just the
Oh yeah, the function. Yeah, yeah. This function does ask for a return statement. If it weren't for this return, the cell is giving you no result. Oh, okay. Let me see. Are you talking about the auto grading cell? Yeah. Here, let me see. So it should show up. Okay. Try saving it. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, yeah. So that's a string.
So that function returns a string, meaning that you can capture this function into this result right here. So yeah, just yeah, you can display it. All right. Any questions on Zoom? I just had to walk around the classroom for a quick minute. Yeah. Anything? Okay. All right. Let's move on, and we're gonna end early, so I'm gonna walk around the classroom again just to make sure folks are all good. So once we verified it, right, I just checked the feedback in this checker. Yeah, it looks like we're good. We can pretty much copy over the function implementation. So I'll copy all of this here, right? Copy and then paste it into here, and then format it. Okay, there we go. So we got it now. Okay, we just did most of the midterm practice. And there's a couple more for folks to get done at home. Go ahead and try this last one out. It's a little trickier. But if you did the weather assignment, make this one should be smoother. So yeah, try that out yourself. Um, so let's leave folks with two questions to practice. Right, the first one I skipped over. It was number 3. Right, write a function called list first 5. Right, try that out yourself. And then finally, the last question, number 6, right, which is pretty much asking you to generate a table, right, an HTML string that represents a table. All right, so yeah, try that out. And then the last question, this is probably the most important one. Right? It's asking you to upload the notebook. Right? So once you're done with the notebook, you want to download it. It's just like our previous homework submissions. Right? You want to download it, however way you want. I think some people went here and then press download here. So download it and then upload it to this last question, and then you can submit. Okay, so that should be some good practice. Once again, the midterm is going to be very similar to this. It's going to ask you to write a bunch of functions. Okay, so that should be it for now. Are there any questions about this pipeline?
I have an unrelated question. Could I ask, like, once you're done?
Sure, yeah. Here, let me stop recording here, and then we could go over it. Are there any questions related to the midterm? Okay, once again, I'll make an announcement in a bit, but yep, give it a shot, and see you all later. Thank you for coming, everyone.